Hey guys, welcome to a new season back, as it were, prep show. We're doing a preseason prep show on the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap. Well, don't hold us to the weekly just yet. We haven't talked that. We might be like at least monthly at this point. Recap what's going on in the world of sports, specifically hockey, and even more specifically in the great nation of Canada. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick. Look at that, without even missing a beat. And I'm joined every episode by the guy in the big box downstairs.
The big box downstairs. Well, we're not going to top that introduction. I am Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. I was doing the math quickly, and I wasn't quite sure. Is this year 7 or year 8 for us? Or is it year 6?
This is probably, I would guess it's probably year 7. I think we've done like 6 full seasons.
Because I'm pretty sure year 1 for us was the year that the Cubs won the World Series. And
Yep.
I think that was 2015. I think.
Yep, so this will be our, done 6 full seasons. This is the start of 7.
So 15, 16, 17, 20, 21. Are we? Okay, well, I trust your math.
I think so. Like, this is our second, this is going to be our 3rd year just on YouTube, right? Because we did the goofy Canada division for the pandemic bubble or whatever, like, and then we did last year was a regular season. So this is like our 3rd YouTube season. I mean,
Wow.
we've probably at least 4 just podcasts. So I guess we call ourselves a podcast. Now we're kind of like a YouTube series too.
I wouldn't want to timestamp us and go back to year 1 and see how awfully the pandemic has aged us over the last couple of years. But it might be fun to see 2 svelts like Mick and Grant's, like cheery, upbeat, and 2 short years later, the world really got us by our testes still. But
The world beat us.
you win COVID.
You win COVID, but not anymore because it's over. It doesn't exist. Boom! Did it! But we're here. If you haven't, so I called this a preseason show, not necessarily like episode 1. Normally we're going to give you a rundown of headlines, what's going on in the world, keep you up to date here, loosely following sports, give you some gambling advice, some fantasy advice. We play games, maybe? It's been a hot second since I've done this, so maybe we play a game. We look at boobs. What more could you ask for on Saturday morning?
Oh God, that reminds me. I need a babe of the week. Well, I'm going to feverishly find this,
Alright,
but
cool.
I am looking forward to all of the fun stuff that you mentioned.
However, there's a lot going on. There's football going on, guys. There's college football going on. There's MLB playoffs going on. Like, our plates are just jam-packed. And guess what? There's a little tiny sliver on the outside. We forgot that hockey started. Well, we planned this, obviously. We kind of remember. But we haven't done a lot of work, as we were talking beforehand. So today's our prep show. You're going to be involved with our prep. If you already know everything and you guys are experts and you are well aware of where the standings are, all the off-season moves, you don't care about our opinions, I guess this isn't the show for you. And that's a great way to start a show, is by saying don't listen. But what we're going to do is we're going to roll through kind of the season that was last year, finally look back, look a little bit ahead to the future of this upcoming season, see if we can get in some trouble, get a groove. I feel like last season we were pretty dialed in there. We were winning some money playing FanDuel. Someone won some money gambling. Good times. Unfortunately, though, if we look back at last season, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The Montreal Canadiens were in the basement. They were the worst team, the 32nd team. Their odds this year aren't looking great. They are not worse. They are plus 15,000 to win the Stanley Cup, which means Vegas does not think fondly of these poor little Montreal Canadiens. But they're not the worst. Arizona Coyotes at plus 30,000 are the worst. So what did the Canadiens do? Let's start. What are your feelings going into this season with the Montreal Canadiens?
So, people who have listened to us spout nonsense for the last 8 years, 7 years, will recognize that I've got a half jump for Carey Price. So, big part of me is a little heartbroken, I guess. The guy's probably never going to play hockey again. He had that 6-game spell. How many games did he play at the end of the year? 5, 8, something like that. I think it was 6. Anyway, somewhere in that like low aughts. I don't know if we're ever going to see Carey Price again, and that kind of breaks my heart a little bit. My sincerest hope at this stage is that he just gets traded for cap relief, maybe cap relief purposes, lands up on as a cap casualty on a contender who wants to lower their cap hit, and he wins a ring that way. I don't really see any other conceivable path to Carey Price having a Stanley Cup ring at this stage of his career. And that kind of fucking hurts. That hurts a little bit.
Bizarre that both Shea Weber and Carey Price's last game ever will be Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's just where they ride out. The captain, the legacy kind of goalie there in Montreal, and it's just been downhill from there. Very bizarre situation. Those guys are playing at extreme elite levels, and then will never skate again. The bizarro. Not great last year. They really weren't bringing the thunder, bringing the rain. In the offseason, however, they did trade poor Mr. Shea Weber for Evgeny Dadonov, and then they traded, it looks like, a first and a third for top prospect. Everyone loves him, Kirby Dach. They might have even signed Kirby Dach. And then based on limited research, I think that's kind of it. That was their splash. That's all they kind of did. Kind of looks like they're not going for it. Oh, they traded for Sean Monahan.
Yeah, again, limited amount of research, but their back end, little questionable. I remember raving about Joel Edmondson when they traded for it, or when they signed him. Was that last year? The year before? I was like, Joel Edmondson is a fucking steal of a defenseman. He's a steal of a defenseman when he's your second-line defenseman. He's not a steal of a defenseman when you ask him to play 40 minutes a game. And that's probably what's going to happen when you have guys like Michael Matheson, David Savard, Justin Barron, Jordan Harris, and Corey Schooneman. Cool. Chris Weidman's in there too, but I get more credibility if I go straight to Corey Schooneman. Anyway, whatever he is, he's a 27-year-old. I don't recognize his name, so if that's your hope, Montreal, you are fucked.
Yeah, no, not great. As I'm kind of scrolling here through the transactions, courtesy of CBS.com, or CBSSports.com, sorry. Carey Price, Joel Edmondson, Jonathan Drouin, and Sean Monahan, all placed on IR for various on September 22nd. That's a very dark day for the Montreal Canadiens. Release some guys. That's kind of it. Yeah, Montreal, you signed Jake Allen to a 2-year extension October 1st. Probably means that Carey Price, again, we kind of sensed it. They had the heir apparent there. This is going to kind of carry the boat, keep them afloat for a little bit. But, I don't know. I don't imagine the standings are going to look a lot different this year. I kind of feel like Montreal is positioning themselves to be at the bottom. They're going after, what's his face? Who's the top prospect? Who's the star? You want to fail for
Connor Bedard?
Connor Bedard. There we go. That's the man they're hoping for. Sure, why not?
So that's the end game here for the Habs? Just ride it out under shitty circumstances, get the generational talent. And
that's a good way to do it. So we kind of reflected what they did. We talked briefly their off-season moves, and let's do the look ahead now. So in the look ahead, I can't imagine Montreal is doing a lot. Maybe from a fantasy point of view, on a FanDuel at some point, one of their Suzuki's or something like that, or a Caulfield. Those guys are going to be cheap. They're going to score goals at some point, right? As you do, you just sometimes score. The scoring point is going to get the wins, and I imagine they're probably chilling in that lottery. High odds in the lottery next year. That'd be my projection for the Habs. So.
All right. So what I'm reading between the lines here. Guys like the Brendan Gallaghers of the Montreal Canadiens, and maybe even the Joel Edmondson, are probably going to get shipped out at some point. As soon as it becomes official that they're selling, we're going to see a bare bones Habs team so that they have the best odds of the winning the draft lottery. That's our fucking mighty prediction. That's what we're calling here. Canada Pod. You're here for.
Yeah, kind of just throwing for cap friendly. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. Well, Nick Suzuki, I think they must have signed him or something, or his deal just kicks in. $7.8 million, 8 years. Number 1 center. It's probably a really good number 2 center. That's not a bad cap hit for number 2 center. So they just He's that first guy. Said every off season at the start of the season for the Montreal Canadiens since Mikko Koivu played there.
Oh my God.
Maybe
Mikko
Pacioretty. Maybe Pacioretty. So that's not that. That's only 4 years.
I guess if we're framing things positively for the Montreal Canadiens, sure, it's been 4 years since they've had a legitimate number one center. I think that we've fucking belabored these points. I'm already angry at the Montreal Canadiens for making me use 10 minutes of my Saturday morning to talk about them.
Well, is it going to make you feel better to talk about the Ottawa Senators, who finished 26th last year?
You know what? It will make me feel better. We both, throughout the season, you could probably go back and listen to episode 1 if, God forbid it. I think it's on the internet somewhere. Oh yeah, it would be on YouTube. And you could probably hear us just shit all over the Ottawa Senators. And then if you listen to our last podcast, we were probably raving about the Ottawa Senators.
They slowly won us over just through the rebuilding efforts. It looked like they drafted the right bodies. They got the right kids. They all had positive attitudes. They were fun. They were frisky. I think that's the word I referred to them as. The frisky Ottawa Senators. They seemed like they were headed in the right direction. And man, did they believe they were headed in the right direction? Because they were like, guys, look, we were the 7th worst team. Let's go all in. We got cap space. We got picks to move. Boom, baby. Let's build us a top line. Big moves for the Ottawa Senators last year. They traded for Cam Talbot. They flipped Philip Gustafsson. I think that was just that we needed to pull some money back. So they got a starting goalie in Cam Talbot. Wow, it's exciting. They traded a 1st and a 4th for Alexander Dibberkant from the Chicago Blackhawks. And then finally they signed Claude Giroux to a 3-year deal. That was a bit of a shocker. He was one of the big veteran centers out there on the market. Bringing him with that leadership into the building. Kind of a big deal. So, that's what they did. And I think that's kind of it. Nothing else changes. They didn't do anything else that kind of tipped the needles. Those are the big ones. Giroux and Debrecant, right?
Yeah, so I don't think... So Giroux was the preeminent free agent available, and I don't think anybody saw him going to Ottawa. I don't think that was on anybody's radar. I didn't hear one insider tout, oh yeah, wait for this Giroux signing in Ottawa. He was linked to Toronto. He was linked to Edmonton. He was linked to contenders. And then all of a sudden he signs somewhat close to home with the Ottawa Senators. All of a sudden, this has a cascading effect. And then they brought in Alex Brincat, you're right. Their top line, not only have they built themselves a legitimate first line, but it also allows the Drake Bathersons and the Brady Kachucks of the world to slot into more natural positions and move them into second line roles where they will have more ideal matchups. I think that Ottawa could very easily make the playoffs this year. And again, this is coming from maybe a slightly biased opinion because we are high on the Ottawa Senators. I am high on the Ottawa Senators. This team will surprise a lot of opponents, and even Cam Talbot. What they haven't had for the last couple of years or seasons is they haven't had above average goaltending. Even if Cam Talbot is average, which is better than what they've had, we could see this team make the postseason and potentially, if they catch lightning in a bottle like we've seen hot goalies do year over year, actually go on a run.
There we go. Vegas right now has them at plus 5,000 to win the Stanley Cups. The Stanley Cups. You get 2 this year, apparently. That's exciting. Middle of the pack, obviously much better than the Montreal Canadiens, but plus 5,000, still kind of long shot odds there. It also looks like they gave Strutzel a big deal. So I think they signed him to an 8-year deal. My screen won't let me go over to see how much he signed for. I want to say 8 something, closer to 9?
8.35.
8.35. It's not terrible, right? Again, second line, it's kind of, I guess, what they cost, right? If you want. He's young. The kid's only 20. Holy smokes. So you still get that guy at 29 at that deal. That might be a steal, actually. Looking forward. Yeah, I agree. Those moves, big needle movers. The Claude Giroux signing, I'm less inclined to say I love it. He didn't seem like he had a lot left in the tank his last, at least year in Philadelphia, maybe the last 2 seasons. He did, outside of a little bit of leadership, he had some kind of clutch goals at the end of the season for the Florida Panthers. In the postseason, he was pretty quiet, right? He couldn't right the ship. He couldn't kind of get that very talented club over the hill against the Stanley Cup champions, or finalists, I guess, the Tampa Bay Lightning there. I don't love it. Like, that's the one where I'm like, I think maybe you guys are, like, outstepping. If he's coming in for a leadership role, but if you're expecting him to play on your first line, might be a bit of a reach. 3 years, I don't love the deal. I don't know if it's going to age well. And just knowing that the Strutzel deal is coming in, that they're going to have to pay Debercant after this season. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. However, I do like the acquisition of Alexander Debercant. I think he's going to add just that dynamic scoring that they've been lacking, right? They now have 2 lines, and when it's a close game, when it's a 1-goal game, it's tied, you kind of have to decide who do you want to shut down, and they just didn't have that last year, right? Like, you could have just decided get into Strutzel, get into Kachuk, shut them down. They're not going to do much. Now you have 6 guys out on the ice that can make a difference. And I agree with Grant. I think they're going to be like third. Like, if they're playing for third place, easily a wild card, that would be my prediction for the Senators. And then once the postseason hits, it's just chaos. Anything happens. So
I do. So I've already said, I think the benefit to having a guy like Giroux is that he insulates everybody else. Now you can play a guy. You can play him. You can play Giroux with anybody. You can play him with Kachuk, you can play him with Stützle, you can play him with Batherson, and like, he will take heat off of whichever young player you're skating next to him, even DeBrincat. You could put him next to DeBrincat, and I don't think, like, leadership notwithstanding, I still think that he has something to contribute on the ice. If I would have done my homework, I probably would have had something to back up my opinion. I do like the acquisition, and I'm saying this right now. Maybe if the Ottawa Senators make it to the postseason, I bet you it would cost, for, let's say, $500 to fly to Ottawa, and I bet you we could get into a playoff game for like $60. Which is, like, as far as Canadian playoff cities go, the cheapest you could possibly hope for. So I bet you for $560, I think we could go to Ottawa and we could watch a playoff game this year.
I would be very for that. So that's definitely something we could kind of put a pin in, talk to it, and we could finally, there must be a brick house or something that we can piss on out in Ottawa, really rile up, live our dream. That's been the Canada Puck dream. That's what we're doing. And I agree. And I guess more of my point of, if you're thinking Drew's coming in as an impact forward and you're expecting him to kind of contribute and carry the team, this team probably doesn't need that at this point, right? Between the Kachuk, the Norris, the Batherson, the Debercant, they might have enough goals. And if Drew's just there just to take pressure off, lighten the load, and be in a mentoring role, right, to help Kachuk, help Strutzel get to that next level, it's probably worth it, right? I'm just not exactly sure I don't know what kind of a guy he's like. Florida flamed out. They were terrible. The last couple years in Philadelphia didn't seem like great environments. I would hate for him to be, I don't know, a negative Nancy and bring this team down. Because I enjoy the trajectory, but I don't know if I love Drew's just past history the last couple seasons, right? Like, I don't know, if he's kind of a wet blanket on this team, I would hate for them to wreck the development of this team, right? So
fair. I'm going to let you down right now, though. There's no brick walls. This arena is literally in the middle of nowhere. When I lived in Ontario, it was quicker for me to get to the arena from Kingston than it was for people on the opposite side of Ottawa to get to the arena. No brick walls. There's an overpass. We could pee on an overpass.
I'm not against peeing on like a barrier on the side of the highway, so.
All right, overpass. We're aiming for the overpass.
Sweet. That is a sick, like, if I'm a Senators fan now, how excited are you? Like, literally, I'm talking about scoring goals, and I'm going down the list. I'm like, Kachuk, Norris, Debercant, Batherson. I forgot about Strutzel. That's 5 guys. 6. Like, great. Good job, Ottawa. You kept me excited.
Intrigued. Yeah. We are intrigued.
I just have, and maybe it's like the the Leafs fan in me that I'm just like, I just don't want this to go south. Like, why did you sign a guy that's going to wreck your team? You had such nice things. You invited the kid over that fit your toy. Look, G.I. Joe's missing an arm now.
You've been hurt so much in your life, Mick.
Just been
The
hurt.
funny thing is that I was also looking at this through the Milan Lucic lens. When you started talking, it's like, oh my god, please don't turn into Milan Lucic.
Yeah.
So we've both been hurt.
All right, so there we go. So 10 minutes of Ottawa Senators. That was a good use of our morning. They were one of the bigger movers, shakers. Not the biggest, in my opinion, but they were definitely probably tied for second for guys that like really turn the needle. As I scroll up ever so slowly, because I want this to be suspenseful, we get to 19 Winnipeg Jets. I didn't see that coming. I thought the other guys were going to be there. Winnipeg.
Back and stick around here. I was definitely expecting the other guys.
Yep, I think they might be right on top of them, so a little bit surprised here. Okay, looking at kind of what happened, did they sign anyone? Winnipeg Jets. They re-signed Pierre-Luc Dubois for one year. They may not have done anything else. What the heck? All right, well, Winnipeg Jets, how the mighty have fallen. Yeah, I'm rolling through here. Really nothing is jumping out of my mind. The other guy that was Jonathan Kovac, I think he was one of the defensemen they got in the line A deal. Apparently he's turning into a pretty good deal. I know he's only on a 2-year deal, but if they can turn him into something, they need defensemen in Winnipeg. May not be too terrible. Let's go to Winnipeg Jets, cap friendly. I did this backwards.
I'm looking for defensemen on 2-year deals. I don't even know who you're talking about.
2 years. Sorry, Jack. I pulled it down. Is he here?
Oslovich?
He didn't even make the team. He's not even projected to make the team at this point. I think he's more of a development player from what I've heard. Yeah. Anyways, cool. Winnipeg Jets. They kind of didn't really do much last year. Didn't look great. They didn't really sign anyone.
So this is basically a case of running it back with an underperforming team.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to pay off. I don't see anything here that they are rudderless, and that is once Paul Maurice he said these guys aren't doing jack shit, and then they brought in a new head coach, and then they did even less. I don't know.
There you go. That's the Oedipus. I completely forgot that there was that weird random around Christmas. I want to say December, January. Paul Maurice just leaving town, and what happened there? And that was probably the Winnipeg Jets' downfall. They still have some names: Kyle Connor, Scheifele, Eller, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I was just bragging, the 6 names I wrote off in Ottawa. I think some of those guys, Blake Wheeler, like those 5, probably stack up with the Sens pretty well. Morrissey on the back end. You got a better goalie. Winnipeg Jets could beat the Ottawa Senators in a fight pretty easily, potentially, right? So I realized we were coming from a high to a low, but probably a little bit more even. Even what Vegas has them here at plus 6,000, so nothing special. Don't expect too much. I don't expect too much.
All right, Mick. I think you're passively alluding to it. I want to know who you think wins in a knife fight. Are we Winnipeg Jets walking down the Forks, Ottawa Senators off a big 6-5 victory, heading back to their hotels? Like, we're talking like Anchorman, blood style. Who wins that fight?
Although it's touching the hair in this case, and no one's going to touch. I think Brady Tkachuk is single-handedly taking down everyone. That guy has got a dog. He is having fun. He is popping 2 beers. He's Stone Cold Steve Austining the beers. He's got 2 knives. I think he single-handedly kills both teams. He didn't really understand what the point of this knife fight was. So in that case, Senators.
So, Senators, but officially the Brady Tkachuk. This has become the Brady Tkachuk show.
That's pretty much what he did. It's luckily they play hockey, not knives. So that's the only plus that they have going for them right now.
All I can picture is Brady Tkachuk skating out warm-ups by himself, just juggling his knives the next night out. They're like, Brady, we forgot to tell you, you can't play hockey anymore because you killed both teams.
You gotta go to jail for a little bit, bud. Oh, okay. Right.
You're gonna have to go cool your jets here. Let's get back to neutral though and run it back next year. We'll find you a new Claude Giroux.
All right, I don't hate it. I'm looking like all these guys on this Jets team. I don't think anyone's over 30. Like other than Blake Wheeler and Sam Gagner, every single forward on this team is still in their 20s. Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon are the like two oldest defensemen in their 30s. Everyone else is a young kid. This is still weirdly a young squad. Did they just like peak early and mature and kind of come into our lives a little bit too soon? Is that what's going on as I look at this Jets roster? They, in theory, still have a good prospect pool. Maybe one or two of those guys kind of break out this year, and we're looking, mid-January trade deadline. All of a sudden, these guys are solidly in a wild card spot, right? They're duking it out. They're performing better. We're talking about a Vezina year for the goalie Hellebuck here.
So yeah, two things worth mentioning. Like knife fight notwithstanding, I do think that the Winnipeg Jets do have something to fight for, and Rick Bowness, he did some good things with the Dallas Stars, and what the Jets have been missing their entire, iteration of, we'll call it the entire we'll call it the Blake Wheeler iteration. They haven't had a defensive presence. They haven't had any defensive structure where they actually limit an opponent. And you're right, Hellebuck's only 29, still prime hockey years. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's got something to play for still. He wasn't as bad as we saw last year. With improved defensive structure and a rebound year from Connor Hellebuck, you're right. This probably is a wild card team. And part of what clinches it for me is like they're competing in the Central Division. The Chicago Blackhawks can't hold a candle. Arizona Coyotes can't hold the candle. Dallas, maybe Dallas, but like you're competing against Colorado, you're competing against St. Louis, and like I guess Nashville too. So yeah, third, fourth, not out of the realm of possibility.
I hated it going into it. I was gonna crap on it, poo him. Just sitting and looking at this squad, I don't hate what they're doing. Right? Like you have a breakout year from Halona, this young defenseman that they've got. He's 21 years old. He steps up and he becomes like a top 2 guy for this squad or something like that. I think that could be a game changer, right? Like they just need somebody to take that step, find that spark. We talked that, years. These guys, they draft well. They've got the prospects. They just need somebody to kind of take that leap and become an upper level guy from nowhere. If that happens, now if guys just play closer to their averages, no one kind of comes off the page, no one really takes that leap, I think we're looking at like a bottom 10 team easily, right? They're going to be struggling all year. It's not going to be fun to be a Jets fan, but let's be optimistic right now. I think one of these guys could step up and surprise us, right? Like, oh, cool. And that's going to be a name everyone knows. So Halona, there, I said it twice now on a podcast. Maybe we'll be talking about it come playoff time. So
my sincerest hope now is that we get a Jets Senators Stanley Cup final. That's what I'm hoping for. We could straddle both lines. We can pee on a wall at the Forks and an overpass in Ottawa.
Whew.
That's the dream.
Whew.
That's the dream.
All right. So that was more positive than I was expecting. If we go up, I think, like we alluded to, we have to scroll up one more. There we go. Vancouver Canucks finished 18th last year. Vancouver, I was doing some light research a couple weeks ago. I laughed really hard because I don't think the Canucks actually did anything. They signed JT Miller. That was their offseason. They're done.
We are good. And they signed him to an $8 million per year contract. So, before we even dive in, did they overpay for JT Miller?
No. He got 90 points last year. He was a leader when the squad was, it seemed like they had a little bit more talent. I think JT Miller, I don't know his age. If he's like 29, yeah, that deal's definitely going to get kind of ugly at the end of it. But I think for right now, I think you had to do it. There was talks of him leaving town. He's the leader of this team. I think you had to pay him. And I mean, if anything, it's a pretty good deal for like a number 2 center, and you might get some more value knowing that whoever you trade him to, at least now there's term, right? Like you're not just trading for the player, you're trading for the term as well. Decent, but you didn't do anything else, Vancouver. You didn't make the playoffs, and you did nothing. What happened?
I don't like doing this. I will defend it a little bit because Thatcher Demko was absolutely brilliant in Boudreau's system. So a full season of Bruce Boudreau, Thatcher Demko, another year of development for the Elias Petterssons. Oh my God, Quinn Hughes, even to a lesser extent Brock Boser. The young guys, the nucleus of this team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe these guys are knocking on the door too. Maybe running it back with the same squad, just a more expensive JT Miller is exactly what this team needed to do. We saw how great they were under Boudreau because they went from like I want to say bottom 5 up to just outside the playoffs.
Yeah.
And with at least half the season or close to half the season with Bruce Boudreau. So I don't know. Maybe this team isn't pointed in the right direction.
We're so optimistic and happy. I don't know why, but I'm also sitting here, I'm looking at the squad, and I'm like, as of right now, assuming everyone plays again, kind of run that mean, right? Kind of what we'd be expecting of them. This team, again, bottom 10, but that's just kind of hockey. If they have some guys step up, play above their means, if Quinn Hughes returns to that form that we saw a couple years ago, right, where he's kind of putting the puck in the net, offensively he's playing a lot better. Demko just reaches his career averages. They have some pieces, right? I guess they did throw some money at Ilya Mikheyev. Like that's probably maybe one of the worst contracts right now that I'm seeing. But Niels Hoglander, Vasil Podkolzin, if one of those guys step up and becomes a top 6, like Pettersson, Bozer, Horvat, Miller, and say Podkolzin, I don't think they're worse than the Jets, right? This could be a frisky team too. Boudreau, if they get them kind of clicking, yeah, I agree, Grant. What does Vegas think are doing? They are plus 3,500, so still a bit of a long shot, but optimistic? I don't know. I think this team moving in the right direction, maybe could do something. They could be knocking on a wild card. I think they're easily fighting for wild card spots, though.
What you're doing is you're completely looking past Curtis Lazar. I had no idea Curtis Lazar was still in the league. I guess he spent the last couple of years in Boston. Signed Curtis Lazar, 3-year, $3 million contract, $1 million per year. I want the hamburger eating Curtis Lazar though. That's the Curtis Lazar that I'm hoping for. I don't want Boston or Buffalo Curtis Lazar. I'm gonna eat your cheeseburger off the ice. That kind of hunger, Curtis Lazar.
There you go. Yeah, they've got some pretty attractive UFAs too, like Bo Horvat. You'd like to maybe sign a guy like that, but like, what's he going to return at the trade deadline? If things are trending south, they still got superstar Luke Shen. He's worth like a 7th round pick at the trade deadline. That's amazing.
Luke Shen. We have a Luke Shen sighting. Oh my God.
Luke Shen sighting. So I think it's going to go either way. Ilya Mikheyev, good penalty killer. However, he kind of played with maybe the best penalty killer in the league, Mitch Marner. So I think that's why his statistics look a little bit better. Are we going to see 10 over under 9.5 shorthanded goals from Ilya Mikheyev this year?
I'm going to say, for the sake of entertainment purposes, over. But did you know that Luke Shen won 2 Stanley Cups? He spent the last 2 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Smart. That's a good heads-up hockey right there. So, superstar.
Sorry, just one Stanley Cup with them.
And does Braden Shen was Braden Shen on that St. Louis team? Do the Shen brothers, did they get 2 Stanley Cups?
Oh my God.
This is the most Vancouver segment ever. We're like, yeah, they're kind of interesting. Hey, what about Braden Shen?
Can we talk about somebody other than what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Of course we can.
Easy.
All right. According to hockey, Braden Shen also has a Stanley Cup.
So, it is Thanksgiving weekend. We have not mentioned that yet. But in the Shen household, that table is extra supports added to it because they've got these big, heavy Stanley Cup rings weighing the table down. Mama Shen, she don't want that turkey falling on the floor.
No. I don't even know how to eat that up. There was a food analogy that was escaping me, but Anyways,
Okay,
the
cool.
moment's gone.
Well, Vancouver, your moment is gone. I'm optimistic. There we go. So down to the final 3 teams. 2 in Alberta, in the Battle Alberta, and 1 out east. And I know as I scroll up, I think the Oilers are going to pop up next. Yeah, they finished 11th. I kind of want to talk about Calgary last. Because I feel like Calgary had the most entertaining offseason. Do you want to talk about the Oilers or the Leafs first?
I think this is where our optimism probably starts to spiral. As mentioned earlier, we've been hurt. So you know what? Dealer's choice. I'm going to let you take this whichever direction you'd like to go in.
Well, I can't do order of... Yeah, it doesn't matter. I guess we'll do Oilers. Sure. Even though they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions in the conference finals, which was a hell of a performance from both Draisaitl and McDavid over the postseason. They just came up a little bit short. They're probably the better team, right? All things considered. The fact that both their goalies are now injured and no longer playing in the city. The fact they went that far, pretty amazing, to be honest with you. What did they? That's how they kind of finished the offseason. I would say on a high, losing to the Stanley Cup Finals or the finalists in the postseason. Does that count as ending the season on a high?
If it would have been closer, yes. But getting swept by the eventual Stanley Cup winners still kind of stings, and it still kind of illustrates the gap between the Oilers and the top teams in the league. They did a little bit to address it this offseason. Did they do enough? I don't know. Jack Campbell, God bless Soup's heart. I mean, is he a legitimate number 1 goalie? I would put him on like the fringe. I wouldn't say that he's like the top 15. Maybe he's top 15. He's definitely not top 10 for starting goaltenders. But the Oilers don't really need that. They have a decent structure. They're going to score goals, hopefully at will. Jack Campbell, much like Cam Talbot, just needs to be average in Ottawa. That's the standard that the Oilers have when it comes to Soup. The steal of the offseason was... maybe not the... Yeah, you know what? I will call it the steal of the offseason. They signed Evander Kane for $5 million. I don't know how they tricked Evander Kane to living in Edmonton for $5 million. I feel like that would be the base rate to be like, here, $5 million to come live in Edmonton, and we'll give you $4 million to play hockey for us too. Like, I feel like that's how the negotiation probably should have went, but Kane's stupid agent didn't take it that way, and now he's playing. How many years does he have left here?
I think it was 4.
4 years. 4 years and $5 million. I don't know. Maybe he's planning on San Jose still owing him some money. Maybe there's like fallout where he's gonna get part of his other contract, so he's like, you know what, I'll play at a discounted rate. But to stay in Edmonton for $5 million, there's something going on there. There's some funny stuff. I don't know. Maybe they promised him a date with Connor McDavid's wife. Like, if you play, Connor McDavid's like, you can have one date with my wife because I got my side pieces that I'm going to have to go on dates with. I'm going to need somebody to keep, I wish I knew her name, whatever her name is, warm, Mrs. McDavid warm. You can spend one night a month with Mrs. McDavid. That's kind of how I picture things going.
Yeah, it doesn't seem bad. Yeah, the Oilers, I mean, the Avalanche, ultimately, I think we're just an elite team last year. A lot of things came into place. They had some stars break out. The stars did just align for them at that point. They had been kind of building to that moment. So it's unfortunate the Oilers got in the way. I don't know if the Oilers are that much further than like the elite 2 or 3 teams in the league, right? Like if you were to stack them up against everyone else, Vegas has them at plus 1,500, tied with the Calgary Flames. You know, if anyone is interested, just in terms of odds for to get to the Stanley Cup. I don't know if they're there, but like Grant said, there's a lot of nice pieces here. There's McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and Nugent Hopkins and Kane, Yamamoto, Pujarvi. That's like 7 strong at forward. Defensively, this is one of the better squads I've been looking at. We've got a healthy Darnell Nurse. He's going to be a big game changer. Tyson Barrie, he's clicking well. We're not going to talk about Cody Ceci because that guy's just absolutely terrible. But Kulak, Bouchard, Broberg, Ryan Murray. He's only 29. That's a good stay-at-home defenseman, right? Like he's going to give you bottom pairing minutes. That's great. Campbell and net. This squad might be better than it was last year.
I think the benefit is you get so Brett Kulak emerged as like a perfect second pairing defenseman. He can play in his own end responsibly. He's actually pretty good at moving the puck up, and that frees up guys like, well, definitely Bouchard, Philip Broberg if he's going to be around. But Bouchard can now play a more free-flowing style. Even though he's great in his own end, he can take a little bit more risks. Now that you have, and I know you don't want to talk about it, but now that you have a guy like Kulak or even Cody Ceci, maybe even Ryan Murray, guys who are willing to stay back and play responsibly in their own end, Darnell Nurse can take chances. Bouchard can join the rush. Broberg, if he's on the team, can join the forecheck. Like, you know what? Here we are. I was expecting us to hit shit spiral again, to be like, you know what? The Oilers are just going to poop themselves. It's kind of a fun time to be an Oilers fan. And I hate saying that because that's the fourth line, or that's the Canada puck taint that we don't need, but it's kind of true.
Well, so far outside of the Montreal Canadiens, who were both kind of just poo-pooing and, like, it kind of looks like they're tanking. They definitely are just tanking. But, like, it really looks like they're just tanking. Everyone else, we're kind of optimistic. There is a lot of nice things to be said, right? Years past, we've looked at these squads, and they've been, like, you can just tell they're a struggle, right? Like, you're looking at these names, and you're like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about Warren Foegele. Warren Foegele, that's a quality third, fourth liner, right? He's going to give you good minutes. He's going to do good things on the ice. He's not going to make stupid mistakes. You're not like, why is this guy on my team, right? There's a lot of, like, those little check marks. This is the best roster we've looked at today, by far. I mean, they have, like, the two best players in the league in McDavid and Draisaitl, so that's kind of, like, easy. It kind of brings up all the rest. But all the rest of the pieces, yeah, not bad.
Low key, I'm just going to say this. I am excited to see what Ryan McLeod does this year. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to tempt the universe. I don't want Ryan McLeod's head to explode on his way to the arena. I'm excited to see what Ryan McLeod does this year.
They did nice things. Jack Campbell, he's as good as what they had. Maybe a little better. Like, Mike Smith maybe won a lot of Oilers fans' hearts in the postseason last year, but I think you're getting a better average quality of play from Jack Campbell on a nightly basis, right? He's going to steal you a game here or there. He's not going to be the reason you're losing games. He's not going to do stupid things, well, too many stupid things on the ice, right? So you're a little bit better there, and, like, yeah, like, there's a lot of pieces. They kept Pujarvi. It's only a one-year deal, but, like, you can get rid of that asset now and he's not just walking away, right? That was kind of the fear, is he was maybe just going to leave the team. At least now maybe keep him around, and if he doesn't want, you could deal him, right? So, like, you almost have the depth at forward that you can move Pujarvi for another piece in the future, or like a piece on the back end, or another forward, or he's part of a greater deal. It's exciting, yeah.
It is exciting stuff. You got me all riled up. I'm excited again. I was going to say I was approaching this from a negative Nancy point of view, but I'm excited.
Like, in the Pacific Division, I don't feel like the Kings are there, right? The Kings are probably who they were last year. They're a scrappy little team. You know, they might put something together. The Sharks, I don't know. The Sharks didn't do anything. Kind of, maybe if they're completely healthy, they like moved pieces. Like, Brett Burns isn't there anymore. They're in kind of a transition spot. The Ducks, I don't think have it there. Like, it could be like, we're talking like Oilers, Flames, Canucks in that Pacific Division. Could be fighting it out for 1, 2, 3. I don't think Vegas. Look at Vegas. Laugh at Vegas. Look who Vegas is playing in net. Like, there's some quality teams, and, like, good job, Oilers. Like, you kind of had these great players. You built around them properly. Let's go.
Let's go is right. You brought up Vegas. I got to get my 2 cents in. Jack Eichel loses everywhere he goes. He has never had a winning season. That guy is a cancer. And you know what? I have to, goaltending, not what it should be. Eichel fucking sucks. But Phil Kessel, God willing, you know what? I'm not going to tempt the universe with this because I really want to see it. But wouldn't it be nice if Phil Kessel could hang his skates up as the NHL Iron Man? I think that would be pretty special.
Exercise, nutrition, bullshit. All you need is hot dogs.
Oh, come on, Phil. Feel the thrill. But anyways, we're not here to talk about the Knights.
100%. But like, just on that note, like that might be the high point of Vegas's season. Is like you hope Eichel isn't a cancer to your team and like brings you to the bottom of the standings, and you hope that Phil Kessel gets an Ironman streak. That's what you're going for. The end of his career, just looking to go out and skate around, have some fun with his friends. Phil Kessel. That's where you're at. So. All right, Oilers. That's fun. Like I said, I think the next team on the standings, so they finished 6th, the Calgary Flames. They had a hell of an offseason. They seem like a little bit more fun. Let's talk about a more boring team, Toronto Maple Leafs. They lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup finalists. Does it feel better knowing that the team that they went Game 7 toe-to-toe? I know we talked about this last year. Meh. I don't know. I thought I actually didn't think they had it last year. I don't know. I just had this weird feeling. I was kind of concerned about what their off-season spending. This year, what did they do? Nothing.
Kyle Dubas is just intent on rolling the dice with questionable goaltending. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I just got to get this off. 7 games. Kessel just needs 7 games to tie the record, 8 games to surpass it. But Kyle Dubas, I get that he has built this extraordinary team, and I get that they're analytics darlings, and I get that everything is going well in the regular season. But when you consistently poop yourself in the playoffs, when you consistently roll the dice on goaltending, and you continue to have the exact same results, I'm not convinced that Kyle Dubas has earned the amount of respect that he deserves, or that people are giving him, rather, because he, for as smart as he is, and for as great as a GM as he can be, for some reason, he just doesn't believe in paying for goaltenders. And Matt Murray, God bless his heart, he struggled in Ottawa. Maybe he finds his footing in Toronto. But it seems like a big gamble to take for a guy who, I don't care if people fucking come at me for this, is going to be fighting for his job if the Leafs don't start to win.
Yeah, well, so that was kind of the big moves. They lost Jack Campbell. We kind of knew it was coming. He wanted about $5 million. He wanted a bit more term than I think they were willing to give him, right? I don't know if they thought he was that cornerstone piece. They traded for Matt Murray, 4.6, and they signed Ilya Samsonov to replace what Jack Campbell did. Do I think they took a significant step back? No. I do believe that Matt Murray and Samsonov are probably equally as bad as Jack Campbell and Peter Mazarek were last year. The Mazarek deal is probably the greatest failure, if that's what we want to call it, that Dubas has done with this squad. I disliked it at the time. I thought when I first saw it was like 3.8 or something per season for 3 years, and I was like, great, you signed him for that much total for those 3 years, so like 1.3 or something per year. That's exactly what Mazarek deserves. That's what he was worth. They gave him 3 times the amount. It was just absolutely awful. So they moved over for him. I don't know. We'll see. But you're right. Hanging your hat on Matt Murray, who wasn't like always great in the regular season. He had a couple good runs in playing with Malkin and Crosby in the postseason, but like he's never been a regular season darling. So it might be dark days coming for the Leafs here. They did lock up their 2 young guys, Lindgren and Sandin, RFA deals. Defensively, they look all right. And then up front, they were like, hey, we're going to lose Mikheyev, but we're going to bring in Jankrok, who apparently defensively is very competent of a forward. He can play on their second line. He can kind of move around. He's kind of a utility guy for them. I don't know a lot about Jankrok. I know I heard his name mentioned a bunch when he was with Seattle. He didn't really do anything for the Flames last year. I don't know. Did he hit lightning in a bottle? Did he find a guy that's finally going to help Nylander find his game, help someone find their game, step up? Again, they're pretty deep. If we're playing the game, Matthews, Suarez, Marner, Nylander, Kerfoot, Jankrok, Camp, Bunting. There's a lot of talent on this squad.
Listen to the truculence of this fourth line, though. You got Kyle Clifford, Wayne Simmons, and Calle Yarncroc all on the same line, nobody's gonna fuck around on the fourth line. I can tell you that much. That's a truculent group of forwards.
Very, very much so. Yeah, like it's boring. And I think that's what I mean. Like there's quality names. There's a lot of talent on the ice, right? Like guys have stepped up. They developed their things are getting really easy. It's getting really easy to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point in time. I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of adversity felt with this squad. Are they making the postseason? Like what would have to happen is we'd have to see historic seasons from the Senators, the Bruins, the Lightning would have to come back with a vengeance, and like you know what I mean, like something it would have to be like almost so skewed that the Leafs miss the postseason on a technicality or something like that. That's kind of boring. Like you want to see a little bit of truck. Like you want to see this team earn it. You want to see the adversity come. You want to see the big injury they have to overcome. You want to see the comeback games. You want to see these other things. I don't know if we're going to see it. Like I think the Leafs are just kind of a boring team this year, right? Like is Matthews going to win another MVP? That's kind of a boring narrative to watch sports from. It's nice, stress-free for me, but it's kind of like I don't know. It doesn't really do much for you.
You cued something in me, and I didn't watch all the Maple Leafs games, but I do remember them having a knack for comebacks. Mm-hmm. And third period comebacks on a few occasions. I remember them overcoming huge deficits and coming back to win. I don't know if they do that with a lesser goalie. Like Soup was average, slightly above average, and he helped them win games when they needed a comeback. Are we expecting the same thing from Samsonov? Or Matt Murray? I don't know. Personally, no. So if some of that luck wears off, this is going to be a team that has to overcome adversity to make the postseason. So we'll see.
Fair enough. And we've seen other teams kind of do it, right? Like you can't just point fingers and be like you need an elite goalie to win because. What was his name? Swayman or something like that? The goalie for the Bruins there, because Rask kind of just left them high and dry and retired. Like, he did fine. I wouldn't say Jeff Swayman is the best goalie in the world, but defense, the rest of the team was able to carry him. I think that's kind of what they're looking for in Toronto. Is they're like, look, we're so good. Our goalie can, as long as he's just not like the absolute worst player on the ice and costing us games, we're okay. So that's kind of the base they're rolling. Defensively, though, again, boring. I'm very curious to see what the role that Kyle Johncock, their big, off-season mover, does. $2 million, I'm not expecting a lot, but we'll see what kind of they do. Should be fun. I'm sure they'll lose a game to some Zamboni driver at some point. People are going to score their first game, so they're going to be like 0-3 against the Canadians at some point in the season. We're going to have lots of laughing points, talking points on this team. At plus 750. Vegas likes them, or they just figure there's lots of Leafs fans out there and they want to take all those dumb bastards' money. So
probably straddling that line in some.
It's funny, eh? Like the team that in theory is probably the best Canadian team, we're the most down on. We're the most negative on. Just because, I don't know. Do you want to sit here and blow the Maple Leafs? I don't.
Which Maple Leaf is it? I am excited to see. I just can't wait for the shit to start rolling on Jake Muzzin, even Morgan Riley. For some reason, they just they soak all the hate on the entire team. You could have the worst goalie. In fact, you guys did have the worst goalie in the league, in Peter Mrazek, and for some reason, it was still always on the defense. So, I just hope. Yeah, we'll see. We will see.
I mean, health permitting, Lindgren and Sandin, they looked like maybe like a number 2-4 defenseman too at times, right? Like we loved Rasmus Sandin last year. He was my go-to what's it called? FanDuel. One of my contestants at $5,000 and he'd pop a goal once in a while and throw his body around. I don't know. I think we're gonna see some good things. We're gonna be highs, but randomly on a Tuesday night they're gonna get beat 12-0 by the Nashville Predators, and you're gonna be like, the sky's it's fine, guys. It's just breathe. We'll be okay.
On the Sandin note, you brought it up. I have to mention it. This guy underperformed. Like, he still performed well, but he underperformed relative to his metrics.
Mm-hmm.
He could have a breakout year. You were talking about this on, was it the Jets, Canucks?
Yeah.
Expect Sandin to emerge as like an elite defenseman this year. That's what I'm expecting.
I think so too. I think like you're talking about how like Jake Muzzin, he's injured, he's kind of thrown around. I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved at some point. Maybe like throw a pick on him. I don't know. See where we go. But that means the last team that we are talking about is Calgary Flames. They had definitely the most exciting, most action-packed, drama-filled offseason. They barely beat the Dallas Stars. They got kicked. They got their snot beat out of them by the Edmonton Oilers. And then what happens? Johnny Gaudreau, the star, leaves for Columbus, Ohio. That's interesting. Well, as long as Matthew Tkachuk wants to. Oh, Matthew Tkachuk demands a trade and doesn't want to be there? Well, that is too bad. The deal we did not talk about, Matthew Tkachuk was moved to Florida for Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, both signed them to, I think they were like 8 and 6-year deals or something like that. And then lo and behold, August 18th, we're bored. Where does Nazem Kadri, the Stanley Cup winner himself, go? Calgary Flames. The flame went out, as it were, in the postseason, and hell of an offseason.
I thought this team was dead in the water. Like, no, you know what? This team was dead in the water when they couldn't sign Gaudreau. And the part that hurts the most, or the part that should hurt the most, is that Gaudreau took less money to play in fucking Columbus, Ohio. What? I don't get it. And like, you go from a contending team to the fucking Blue Jackets. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. His mind was made up. He was going no matter what. So be it. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to crumble because Tkachuk demands a trade, seemingly evaporating any iota of trade value that the Flames could take into any deal with another team, because Tkachuk wants out. He wants to be dealt. But somehow they convinced and kudos to Brad Treliving, they convinced the Florida Panthers to give them Mackenzie Weegar, Jonathan Huberdeau, and whatever else came this way.
I think it was a first. Like, it's a first in a couple years.
Yeah.
Right?
That's something else. Like, to get this guy, get Tkachuk out, and get the return that they did, and then sign those guys to long-term packs. Calgary went from absolute dog shit to somehow worse than dog shit to back to playoff contender in a matter of days, weeks. And then the icing on the cake is Kadri. I get what he brings. I don't know and I get why the Flames need it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm not sold on Kadri, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if he's going to be this difference maker that they want him to be. I think he's going to be an agitator, but I don't know if he's going to be this, X factor to get them to the Stanley Cup Finals.
This is like almost why I kind of love sports, specifically like this situation, right? Because you can kind of break it down in any way, shape, or form until we see, later, like in a couple days, we'll see the product on the ice. In a couple months, we'll kind of maybe have a better idea. It might take a while. I think that first that they got from the Florida Panthers, it's not next year. It's like a 2024 or something like that. The Florida Panthers have nothing. Like, they don't have a first round pick for the next like 10 years. They're not going to get a lot of talent injected. They're not flocking to Florida to play there, right? Unless I don't know, Kachuk and Barkov have some type of like magical season and lure in free agent talent, I think things are going to get bad in Florida. And that 2024, whatever it is, first that they acquire, that might be the key. That might be like the shining star of that deal in a little while, right? But yeah, like they lost the toughness, they lost the offensiveness, the grit, the grind that Kachuk brought day in day. The offensive abilities in Gaudreau, and then like, did they replace it? So Huberdeau, offensively similar to probably what Gaudreau will give you, maybe a bit more of a physical presence. Okay, so we'll count that as a win. Nazem Kadri, does he get the physicality in the offense that Kachuk brought you? I don't see it. I fail to see that. Mackenzie Weegar, I don't know. Is he good? Or did he just play on a very offensively talented juggernaut team that the Florida Panthers became, so he really didn't need to play that good of defense, right? Was he able to play the tough physical defense that Sutter wants from him? I don't know. As 28 years old, I've never heard of him before. There's not a lot of defensemen in my memory that become superstars at 28 years old. So, I like, in my mind, I think the jury's out a little bit. I like the addition. He's probably their third, fourth defenseman, so he doesn't have to be anything super special. Very lateral moves. Very lateral moves to keep Treliving's job. I think he kept his job for now, but I think these deals aren't going to age well either, right? Like 7 years for a 32-year-old Nazem Kadri, that one might hurt a little bit. And Huberdeau himself, he's on spring chicken. He's 29.
You brought up my exact concerns, because we're talking about this team competing now. We're not having the same conversation in 2 years from now, because you have a 34-year-old Kadri, you have a 34-year-old Jacob Markstrom, you have maybe a few other pieces that emerge, but like overall, you don't have this, like, no offense, Flames, you don't have an abundance of talent. You have guys who are playing great hockey right now, but you don't have guys who are going to blossom into first-line players to replace these guys in maximum 3 years. And then all of a sudden, paying Nazem Kadri as a 35-year-old, paying Jacob Markstrom as a 35-year-old, that carries a different weight than paying these guys in their, the twilight of their prime, we'll call it. So they're doing what they can now. Good for them. We're going to be having a different conversation in a few years, unless somehow Treliving has some more magic up his sleeves where he continues to just fleece other teams in trades.
100%. Like, they're paying a lot of money for some old guys. Like, just even looking quickly at ages. Elias Lindholm, great. You're 27, 2 years away from a UFA. I like that. That's all right. Dylan Dubé, you're 24. Outside of that, those are the only guys kind of under 30, right? Up front. And then Noah Hannafin and Rasmus Anderson. I like those guys. You have 4 really good guys in their mid-20s signed to decent deals that you're not going to have to, like, overpay. Enjoy it. If you're a Flames fan, every win, soak it in. Don't get discouraged by the losses this year. You're probably going to be knocking on the playoff door, causing some trouble. But I don't know if it's there. I don't know a lot about Huberdeau, to be perfectly honest with you. He's not a guy that I went and all the profiles and watched profusely. We'll see what they got. Great return. You kind of wonder, like, Tkachuk was really good for Florida to value him as a decent defenseman. Huberdeau, who was he the captain? He might have been the captain. And a future first-round pick. Like, Tkachuk's only something like 22, 23 years old. He drove Grant crazy. Grant probably absolutely, like, if you were to ever hate a man, Grant, you hate Matthew Tkachuk. Because he made an entire fan base just despise him based on his performance, right?
Well, what I will propose is a TLC, tables, ladders, and chair match. Grant White versus Matthew Tkachuk. Special guest referee, Mr. Knives himself, Brady Tkachuk. Don't tell me you wouldn't pay to watch that.
Are you kidding me? He was drinking beers at all the Flames games. He's clearly, unless this is like a DX Mike Tyson scenario where he's gonna, like, pull off the shirt and stab Matthew a bunch of times midway through the match. I think you're losing.
Oh man, yeah, maybe. Grant White doesn't know what he's getting himself into with this one. But you know what? Yeah, this is the Eric Bischoff. You're the Eric Bischoff in this scenario. You signed the contract. I gotta get in the ring. I'm sorry.
Just have to do it. So yeah. Really exciting. I love the discourse. I love the conversation just around this. Again, like that's what I said. I love sports because I don't really care about the Flames. We had a battle of Alberta. I was so excited. They did nothing. They just looked absolutely just horrendous. They looked like horse shit. They couldn't even play on the ice. Evander Kane scored the exact same goal on you 3 times in one game. What were you doing?
Oh my God, we're revisiting this conversation.
Oh.
This took up probably like 45 minutes of one of our podcasts at the end of last year. How terrible they looked in that one game. But Evander Kane did go forehand once. He went backhand, forehand, backhand. So, I mean,
It's the
I don't
same
want to
goal.
defend.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like freaking Will Ferrell in like Zoolander or something like that. It's one look. He's got one look. I'll show you one look. Look, I also scored a goal with a slap shot.
So, now that we're on the Zoolander train, did you know that movie came out 21 years ago? If you wanted to be aged terribly, 21 years ago, 2001 was Zoolander. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, age is not a kind mistress in the slightest. So that's all right, cool. Yeah, I don't know what to. It's funny again. How optimistic were we? Montreal sucks. Every other team, man, there's so much potential. And then we look at kind of really what should be almost two of the favorite teams, right? I didn't mention it, but the Leafs plus 750 win Stanley Cup. Maybe I did mention it. Flames plus 1500. Pretty good odds, right? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the top. You get to the Flames and the Oilers. Tony Byrne is happy with these squads. For right now, actually, you know what? This upcoming season, assuming the world ends in 2024, yeah, Calgary, you have a great squad. You should be excited to watch it. Just don't think about the future too much.
That's exactly it. Live in the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it throughout all 7 teams. Mick, what is the over-under? No, let me put it this way. The over-under is 4.5 Canadian teams making the postseason. Are you taking the over or under?
4.5. We're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We might have 6. No, 5. 5 is the perfect number. Because everyone has potential. The 5 of them have potential. Or 6 have potential. I think 5 make it. I'm going over. I'm going with 5 teams are making the postseason.
5 Canadian teams. That, in the words of the late, great Bonnie Raitt, that would give them something to talk about. Because, well, that would give us something to talk about. We wouldn't see that type of Canadian action since 2020 when it was all the all-Canadian division. So it would be exciting to see, and I am hoping that we do. I was even thinking 6. It's like the only team that I will officially rule out is the Montreal Canadiens. I think everybody else will have a taste or at least have their feet in the water to try and get there.
I think at some point we probably see the Senators on top of the standings above the Leafs for a good chunk of the year. For a couple weeks, I bet you that happens. Like, everyone's going to sit there and the sky's falling. The Sens, they did it, right? They're going to be frisky. They're going to want to play. They're going to be excited until kind of the grind sets in a little bit. I think the Senators going to be up there. Yeah, it's going to be good. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if we just renamed the Pacific Division the Canadian Division, because we might have Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver in 1, 2, and 3 in that division. So
exciting stuff to be a Pacific Division fan, or in the Canucks fan case, an apologist. But that is throwing it way back to probably season 4 of the Canada Podcast.
Yeah, Vancouver, you still suck. You haven't done anything in like 7 years, so.
And all you did was sign JT Miller, so like, fuck, get over yourselves.
And Ilya Mikheyev.
The Leafs fan from the top rope. Oh yeah, and Ilya Mikheyev.
And Ilya, come on, they nicknamed him Soup because that was his favorite food, was soup. But it was confusing because Campbell was also called Soup. Also, Awesome Matthews. It's so easy to say. Awesome Matthews. Because he's awesome. It sounds like Austin. Like, that's never caught on. Like, Leafs fans, I kind of hate them because you have 2 guys nicknamed Soup and the obvious awesome, like, you didn't take it. What the hell?
A stunning lack of creativity, Toronto.
Well, it's hard when you don't really pay attention until the postseason, and then you spend your $5,000 to watch a game and then leave halfway through because you forgot about it. Like, Leafs fans, I hate you all.
Leafs fans. But I think that's it. We've ran. Oh, you know what? My phone died. So, well, I shouldn't say died. It is like, it's on its way out. So I didn't get a chance to do a sincere look. But I know Mick knows this, and I know that I know this. In the spirit of Canada Puck, what we are doing, where we are reinventing the Babe of the Week, and my phone's going to die. I've got literally 3 minutes left on it. But if you know the Flames Ice Girls, you know that they do good work. One of the ladies, who is renowned for her fabulous caboose, I don't even know if she's a Flames girl anymore, because I just Googled Flames Ice Girls, not Flame. I Instagram searched it, and one of the people who came up, the lovely, her account is private, so I don't even know if she lets you. But if you go to one of the other links on her team or on her page, you'll get a small taste. Bryn Fitzgerald, Brynn Fitzgerald. She used to be a Flames girl. I don't know if she still is, because stunning lack of preparation on my end. I didn't do any research before coming into this podcast. So, she, I can tell you from firsthand experience, does great work, puts a lot of effort into it. She is our babe of the week. Schwing.
Schwing. That is a pretty good caboose. Seen it a couple times cleaning the ice. Hot damn. There you go. So one show preseason. Do I feel better now? Could I fill out a gambling card? Yeah, I think so. So like what we were talking about, normally we have some type of gambling segment. I need a week or two to kind of get my feet wet, to just get a feel for like who's good, who's bad. I don't like to splurge too much at the start of the year, but I do. I always do. And then I'm frustrated with myself. So that's a little too behind just who I am as a person. So I think by next week, hockey starts Tuesday. So that's 4 full days kind of before we have to talk on Saturday. We'll have something for you. We'll have a little fan duel next time. Other sports are probably wrapping up. In theory, we probably don't care much about baseball. Probably both our teams are eliminated at that point, so pretty exciting.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to ask the question though. Brady Tkachuk's got a knife to your throat. Who do you think wins the Stanley Cup this year?
Oh, that's fun. There you go. Stanley Cup. I'm not going to look at the odds just based on what I'm seeing. I don't like Colorado to repeat. I don't think they did enough. Oh my God, is it the Leafs? Am I going to pick the Leafs? No. Say it ain't so. Carolina. Carolina's going to win the Cup.
Well, that is an outstanding pick. I was high on them last year. They kind of pooped themselves a little bit in the postseason. Carolina's a good pick. You know what? That's kind of taking words out of my mouth. I am going to bet with my heart, and I'm going to say the Pittsburgh Penguins. I bet you Sid the Kid and Gino got one more cup run in them. I would love to see one more cup run out of them anyways.
Yeah, I don't like that. Like, yeah, like we're just throwing out like random darts. Like, you had 5 teams to choose from or something like that. Like Carolina, Rangers step off the page. Like, I think there's a lot of talent there. They could do something. One of these years, like the Wild have to go out. Where am I at? 3. Leafs. I'll throw the Leafs in there, and I'll even take a swing at. I like from what we talked about today. I kind of secretly love the Oilers roster right now. And I don't know if it's just because I'm looking and I'm seeing, you know, all the good memories that Zach Hyman brought me over the years, that Jack Campbell brought over the years, or next year when Jake Muzzin is traded there, and then they'll have Tyson Barrie.
Cody Ceci.
Maybe like, Cody Ceci. Kerfoot at some point. You guys probably trade for Alexander Kerfoot. He's great.
Oh, man. The baby Leafs. Yeah. I will say this, so I'm going to stick with Pittsburgh. I was just cycling through. Nothing jumped out at me, except I know we kind of brushed by them when we were talking about Pacific Division teams. The Anaheim Ducks. Young, exciting. I think that maybe if there's a long shot team that is worth a gamble, it's the Ducks. At plus 75, you got...
Was it McTavish? He's their like big guy that like blew up in the World Juniors this last summer, right? Like he was fun to watch. I've heard really good things about him coming up. He's coming in as kind of like that potentially next superstar in the making. Looked really good. Yeah.
John Gibson. They got Trevor Zegras at Jacob Silverberg. I know everybody likes him. I'm not so high on him. Ryan Strome was kind of a nice offseason acquisition.
Oh, yeah.
Maxime Comtois, although he was a big C word on the ice in the World Juniors, he knows how to play hockey, that guy. So we could see them emerge as a dark horse, as it were, in the Pacific Division, and a team that could catch a few teams off guard throughout the season.
Yeah, it's tough with teams like that too, right? Because like you see, they signed John Klingberg to the 1-year deal, and you kind of figure that he's cup hunting, right? So like that's kind of that piece that they move out from or something like that. So I'm always like, I'm a little hesitant to be like, well, they're probably gonna move him, right? Like they're only paying him $7 million because they figure he's worth like a 2nd-round pick this spring, and that's kind of like why they're using that cap space. So I'm always like, tough to see, but like we've also seen teams in the past sell off pieces, get cap space, still make the postseason, and like win a round or something. And now you're like, look, we got prospects, and our fan base is satisfied, right? So,
yeah,
cool.
Anyways, should be exciting. You know, I came into this podcast not super excited, but I'm leaving the podcast on a high note. I think that throughout our conversations, I become more engaged about what hockey's going to bring next week when it gets started. I know it officially started today. Boo, NHL. You should be ashamed of yourself running preseason next to regular season. Just an embarrassing look. But when we go full send next week, I'm going to lose some money in the first week. Maybe I'm going to win some money in the first week. But I am excited for what is going to be, hopefully, an exciting season.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it. Lots of optimism going into it, so see how long. Over, under, I would say Christmas. For some reason, like, football season kind of ends at, like, Christmas, New Year's, and then I kind of get into hockey a little bit. So I'm definitely, I got about 3 months of just faking it until the excitement kicks in. And I feel like lots of hockey teams do that too, right? So Pittsburgh Penguins once were down and out. They fired their coach, one of the worst teams in the league. They come back, won the Stanley Cup. So sometimes I find like the first 3 months of hockey it almost doesn't even matter. That happened with Tampa Bay too. The year they won, I guess they won technically in the bubble, but they were horseshit up until mid-December. Then they started winning some games. Eventually go on to be the Stanley Cup champion. So I never get too stressed out in the first couple months. It's fun. It's fun. You can just watch and enjoy. It's just hockey. There's not a lot of politics up until that point. So,
well, let's enjoy this magical sports equinox until let's run out the clock with baseball. Basketball's around the corner. NHL's starting. College football. NFL. This is one of the magical times of the years. We always talk about it. Super exciting stuff for the next few weeks here. So I'm ready to soak it in.
Woo! All right. Well, with that, do we have a sign off? I think we're all done. The last thing I say is party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.